But what you need to do, and most organizations that do a lot of distributed work need to have a staff attorney that is current on all of this stuff. And a lot of organizations, I know Sabre does this, is because they travel so much between their sites, is that they have a constant travel advisory group that sends out emails saying, if you're going here, you need to do this, or if you're going there, don't.
Yeah, the same for our Argentinians to travel to USA. We got 90 days to go for business meetings. Most important thing I think is that your salary is getting paid in Argentina. You're not going to be paid in the USA, and you're going to get public funds. I think they care about it. And the same for Europe and the UK. I think Argentinians will go there for 6 months instead of 90 days.
Another area that you have to think about seriously is, for your itinerants, is healthcare. Because a lot of the companies, or a lot of the countries that we as Americans do business in have what we in America call universal health care, which means that it's sponsored by the government, and it doesn't work the same when you're outside the country. So for Indians, for Argentines, for Bulgarians who are outside of their country, if they have a medical issue, you need to buy supplemental medical insurance for them. So it's an added cost that the organization needs to budget in, because if you don't, it can be catastrophic.
I heard a lot about the discussion. On distributed team, considering they are working in other offices there. But I believe that a huge benefit for individuals is working from home offices. So, do you think this is here on this distributed concept, or what's your opinion on that?
I'm waiting for Mary to jump in. So that's the open source concept. In the open source concept, in most open source projects, what you have are individuals who are participating in a larger, usually I don't need it, but that are working in a larger project, and so they're individual contributors. They work wherever they are. A lot of open source people work out of their house, or they participate in an amount of time in their company. A lot of people at Google gives their people 20% of their time to work on whatever project they want. That can be open source. They're very strong supporters of open source projects. And so what happens is that every Friday, you can literally spend on your open source project at Google using Google facility. But the thing is that all the rest of your teammates aren't there, and so you're an individual contributor. In the United States, it's very common for people to work out of their house. It's very, very common for people to dial in and use the best of their infrastructure to participate, and so we just view them as remote. On this project with the folks in the US, we've got remote people on those different teams that work out of home offices. As long as your home office has adequate technological infrastructure, it works. We have had situations on some of the teams, particularly the ones in Poland, where they have a great work ethic. When they're sick, they still try to dial in and say, I'm sick. But what we found is that the infrastructure in the Krakow area is not up to doing that. Not necessarily whether they have computers or phones or anything like that, but the bandwidth that they have on the internet or on the phone line does not really support the dial-in to the conference calls, and nevertheless doesn't support video on the conference calls. And so that's something you have to work with as well. There's a lot of companies out there that will say, here's an allowance, make sure that your home office is set up so that you can work there. Do we have home offices frequently in Argentina or Brazil?
Yes, I've been on a company.
Other questions? Come on, there's got to be one. Yes.
on phone?
Yes. Without question. And we're actually getting to the point with some of the technology that's out there. You know, there's a lot of different stuff out there where you can have video chat rooms. And you can actually see people, and that works as well. Having that video feel, even though it's a little clunky still, gives you a much more personal view and understanding of what people are doing. It's so easy for people to be asleep during a phone conference. It's hard to know what their body language is, and in those types of environments, you lose a lot. So just being able to see their facial expressions works well. There's been a lot of discussion in some of the Yahoo groups recently about doing planning sessions in Third Life, or Second Life, or Third Life. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. And they're saying that, you know, the experiences that they've had, it's easier to focus in a phone conversation when you're looking at an avatar, as long as the avatar isn't like a goat with muscles or something like that. And I know the folks over at Second Life, because a bunch of them left SourceForge to go over to Second Life. Yeah. And I still wonder, and I'm not quite sure that I'm ready to do business with a bunch of avatars. Because you never know if that's really their facial expression. But I do think that the more you can make it as personal as possible, the better off it's going to be. Other questions? We got 5 more minutes. There's a question over here. Anybody? Anybody?
You can ask it in Spanish if you like to also.
Hi. You explained how did you do retrospective and daily meetings with distributed teams. What about the review meetings? Do you put all the people together by phone or Skype and do the review with the product owner and stakeholders, or you just call the necessary people, whatever you call necessary people?
Well, I'll answer it, then he'll answer. We've done both, and the reviews, in a lot of my projects, the projects that I've coached on, the reviews are more of an affirmation than an actual verification by the product owner or the customer. What I like to have done is I like to have the teams verify with the product owner that they have met their expectations as soon as the story is done. And so in the review meeting, it's an opportunity to make sure everything works together and to allow everybody on the team to see the finished product. And so it becomes very important to have everybody participate in the review meeting. And indeed, what I prefer is to have the product owner or the customer surrogate actually lead it and demonstrate that, since it is their software, that they can actually use it. And if we can't get everybody all together in one space, we'll end up doing that in, on a web meeting or something like that. And the customer and the product owner can lead it from wherever they are, and everybody else can see it and go through. So typically what tends to happen is the customer will go through it, they'll launch the application, they'll start going through the story, and the developers or the QA folks that worked on it will explain it to the rest of the teams.
I was just going to say that what we've done, I think itinerants have a really special role over there. As Matt said, as soon as possible, the people who is on site is going to show the progress to the customers and let them know how the stories are going and get feedback as soon as possible from them. And also review meetings, what we done was itinerants also on site perform the demonstration, and we use with those applications for web conference or WebEx, all that stuff, to everyone just take a look to what's going on. But everyone was present, the whole team was present, and we always done reviews meetings.
I have another question.
Yeah, sure.
You didn't talk about Scrum Master role in this.
Well, the Scrum Master role is very important when you're doing Scrum.
Well, most of your examples are, well, not most of it, but most of them, but the one you spend more time explaining was cross-functional teams. What happens when you don't have, when you have distributed teams, when, for instance, in USA, you have only one or two skills and the other ones are in Argentina, and for instance, the Scrum Master is in Argentina and he cannot see what is the dynamic of the work on the people in USA all the day, every day. So
What we have done in situations like that, preferably I want to have a Scrum Master on every team. And a really cool thing about a Scrum Master, and again,
sorry, so you meant that if you have people in Buenos Aires and in USA, even if they are working on the same sprint, you consider it as two different teams?
not always. Not always. And particularly when you start getting home offices and people working remotely. And so when you read the books, Canonical Agile, when you get into the discussion, you talk a lot about self-organizing teams. And when you look at it, a lot of times what they're referring to is that you have somebody play the role of the Scrum Master. They don't have to be a Scrum Master. And so what we tend to do is that for every group of people, there is somebody playing the role of Scrum Master who is beating the drum, calling the cadence. If you have a truly completely distributed team, or you have, some of the team is in one country, some of the team is in another country, there is somebody who is on the phone, in the meetings, who is calling the cadence. They're playing the role of the Scrum Master to facilitate and keep it going. So whether you pass that baton around or it's always the same person, there is somebody in all of these discussions who plays that role. And so when I do a lot of coaching, what I'll tend to do is identify somebody in the different teams in the different locations and have them do it. So we will also, just like we have surrogate customers, we will have surrogate Scrum Masters or surrogate coaches in the different locations to cover if we don't have that position there. We have no more time, but it's a break now, so I'm going to stand here and pack stuff up. If people have other questions, feel free to come up and ask. We'll also
yeah, we have the open space also today, so we can, if you have any
dialogue. And
there to discuss.
we will put the slides up on the website so you can get access with them, and they'll have email addresses if you want to get in touch with Emilio or myself. Thank you very much.
Gracias.